Today we're going to be talking about using Amazon Q in QuickSight for doing retail analysis. In particular, we're going to be talking about the financial analysis. One of the interesting things about retail is that there's multiple stores, and that looking at the financial metrics of different stores can actually yield insights into the operations of those different stores and what's working well and what's not. I'm Brian Platt, and I'm the Director of Data Science at Ironside, with over 20 years of experience in machine learning and data analysis.
I'm Jackson Dowden, and I'm a Partner Solutions Architect at AWS, and I specialize in data analytics and Amazon QuickSight.
We'll bring up the dashboard here, and if we scroll down to the sales by store, we can see a display on the visuals here that shows the financial performance by store sorted by the rank. And the number one store is store number one, well and away the highest performer. And if we highlight that, and if we can see the numbers associated with it, and then we can also right click and drill down on that to look at additional breakdown of information about that particular store. So that now switches over to an additional breakdown tab that has other visualizations.
Part of this additional breakdown is looking at the neighborhood where the store is located, using average home values as an indicator of the local market. We can see from the visuals on the left that the average home value for the city is about 800,000, which is over 2 times the national average, indicated by the mark at around 330,000. This is a key metric for understanding store performance, as the local population and wealth can influence the level of interest in the products. So knowing that this is in New York, which is of course highly populated and a wealthier area, makes sense as to why the store is seeing the highest sales. But one key metric that's missing from this analysis is profit margin. Focusing purely on sales doesn't provide the full context for store success, as even with high sales volumes, if there are also higher expenses, then we may have lower margins and ultimately less profit. Now, this metric isn't currently in our dashboard, but let's take a look at how we can add it.
So first, we're going to have to switch over to the analysis mode, which is the authoring, as if you're an author persona, to be able to edit stuff. And you can see over on the left all the different variables that are involved in our data. And you can see a visualization of what the dashboard looks like currently. And so what we're going to do is we're going to add a new variable for the profit margin. And we're going to build a calculation. So this is our first leveraging of Q here. And we're going to just say that we want to have the sales profit margin as a new variable. And Q will actually recognize this profit margin and recognize the formula, because a profit margin is a fairly common metric for people to use. So it actually suggests a formula we have there that has the total of the sales minus the cost of goods and services divided by the subtotal of the sales. And that is the profit margin calculation that we want. So we will accept that formula that it's recommended, and we'll insert that as a variable. You can see it shows the code that it's going to be using for that. And then we need to give it a name so that it can be in our data set, and we'll call it sales profit margin. And then we will save that variable. And now when we go back out to the analysis mode, we can see the sales profit margin is now in our data set here, and we can make a visual out of it. We'll also leverage Q here to make a visual out of this data. And in this case, we're going to look on the Q here, build a visual, and we're going to enter in the sales profit margin. And we're going to do it by month, because we want to have a visual that shows it over time to go along with some of our other time series data.
Here we can see the result of our query. So Q was able to interpret our question and created a chart showing the company profit margin over time, which is exactly what we were looking for. This is no longer looking at just a single store, but it does give us a better understanding of the health of the business as a whole. And we can see that our profit margin remains relatively stable over time, though we could continue to build on this visual and apply filters if we wanted to continue our individual store comparisons.
We're going to add that as the time series, so add that to the analysis. And it appears a graph down at the bottom here, and we're able to adjust it to fit it onto the page correctly so that it lines up with the other charts and visuals. And then we can save and publish that. And that will get us a new dashboard once we publish that out. And now we have a whole new dashboard. If we go to the summary page that we were doing our editing on as the author, and we can now see at the bottom here, we've now got that new variable that we created, and we didn't have to enter a single line of code. We simply asked Q for the sales profit margin. It suggested a formula. Then we asked for a visual of that by month, and it gave us a visualization of that, and we simply added it to the dashboard. So that's the ability to add something to a dashboard, something like that, in just literally seconds is sort of the power of Q here. So one other thing we want to show with Q is to build a data story off of some of this new information. So this is a nice capability that AI now provides via Q in QuickSight. So if we select data story, let's bring up a new dialog here. And over on the right, it'll ask, what kind of story do we want? And so we're going to enter in there what kind of story we want. In this case, we're going to ask, show me the sales profit margin and sales by month. Again, we're not going to enter any code or anything here. We're going to select some visuals for it to work off of and say, we think that this is probably relevant. and we want to add in our new margin calculation visualization and say this is something we want to include in the data story. We check that off, and then we say go and build a story, build a report based on the information that you see in those visuals. And again, this is the Amazon AI behind Q that's now running through this interface that we have in QuickSight. And the sales start to come up, and what it'll do is start to populate the story. So we already get a seasonal sales. So it understood we were looking at this by month. And so it's looking at the seasonal patterns in the time series, provides a little introduction just to, what might be going into business. It pulls in the graphics we gave. So it's got the sales by month over year with some forecasting in there. And it has the new graphic that we included. And it has a little description for people to read on this data story that was written.
So looking at this narrative here, it's sort of summarizing this visual and providing some textual insights into what we're seeing. So it highlights some peaks and troughs, where profit margin fluctuated in particular months, and it even provides recommendations based on these insights. Specifically, it calls out that we can analyze this trend to identify months with historically lower margins to really focus our marketing and promotional efforts. So we were able to analyze individual stores, in this case looking at the top performing one, and take a closer look at some additional details and metrics through the QuickSight drill down capability. Then we were able to use Q to add a new variable and visual without needing to learn any syntax or write any code, all done in natural language. Finally, we used Q's data stories feature to generate a full report to highlight the insights from our analysis, which we could then edit and customize and ultimately share with our bosses or coworkers to influence our operations. So we were able to use Amazon QuickSight and Q in QuickSight to conduct our financial analysis and accelerate the time to insights.